To people, today is Friday, July 28th, 2023. President Biden is doing his best to keep this in front of the American public. What about the rest of those in charge of Democratic messaging? This should be in front of the American public 24/7, and all the Democrats should be articulating this.
The Republican Party used to always support the military, but today they're undermining the military. The senior senator from Alabama, who claims to support our troops, is now blocking more than 300 military operations with his extreme political agenda. Military families already sacrificed so much, unsure of where or when they change stations, unable to get housing or start their kids in the new school. Military spouses forced to take critical career decisions, not knowing where or if they can apply for a new job. A growing cascade of damage and disruption, all because one senator from Alabama and 48 Republicans have refused to stand up to him.
It is a remarkable state of affairs, and that was President Joe Biden taking aim at Republican Senator Tommy Tuberville, as Tuberville's one-man crusade to hold up military appointments over abortion policy will now apparently stretch through the August recess. For 5 months now, Tuberville has single-handedly blocked nearly 300 military promotions for top generals and admirals in protest over a Pentagon policy that increases access to abortion health care for service members stationed in states where abortions are banned. Several veterans and military groups have spoken out against the hold, including the nonprofit organization Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, whose CEO confronted Tuberville in the Senate halls just this week. Watch that.
I'm a Iraq war vet myself.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Many of us are very frustrated though with your hold on promotions, especially we represent the Post 9/11 Federation of Veterans. Many of them are still serving. I'm just curious there's a lot of conversation here in DC, but what do you have to tell them about why they're paid raises and promotions?
They go to the law sometimes.
But you're rolling up people's pay raises, promotions, and livelihoods.
250 out of. Thank you.
Let's bring in the Iraq War veteran and Chief Executive Officer of Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, Allison Jesla, who you just saw in that video there. Charlie Sykes is back with us. Allison, first tell me about the exchange. What was his excuse?
I don't think he had any excuses. He was pretty dismissive. And I actually think that the most disappointing comment that he made is that he tried to minimize the fact that these are only 250 or 300 promotions out of 2 million. Well, I'll tell you, if you're that one officer or their family, it feels a little more consequential than he tried to make it out to be.
Well, and if you're one of the 2 million, who do you think leads you? It's likely one of the 250. I mean, it seems to have a cascading detrimental effect to the entire U.S. active duty military, no?
Definitely. I mean, you have officers who are doing 2 jobs at once right now. There's a lot of paralysis across the highest levels of the military because in addition to the promotions that I was addressing him about, of course, your viewers probably know that there isn't a commandant of the Marine Corps right now and no superintendent of the Naval Academy. Over time, this will have compounding effects, and it's really a shame that we're going to have to go through the entire August recess without this resolved.
Charlie Sykes, it says something really important and really terrible about the Republican Party that this has gone on as long as it has. Either Mitch McConnell agrees with him or Mitch McConnell is impotent. And, whatever it is, we should get that out and we should debate it as a country. But the fact that they're letting one person damage U.S. military readiness, U.S. military morale, U.S. national security over an extreme policy position, something that is granted to people serving in foreign countries, is some sick stuff.
It is, and in terms of political malpractice, and there's been so much of it, but to allow America's dumbest senator to inflict this kind of this self-inflicted wound on Republicans just is in fact mind-boggling, because if there's one thing that Republicans used to stand for, it was national security, right? Is being pro-military. They still claim to be pro-military, and yet the damage that Senator Tuberville is doing is very real, and it is really dangerous. It really is a gift to the Biden administration, and I do think that it's legitimate for the president to call this out. But I think it is it's really a puzzling question. Why do his fellow Republicans allow Tommy Tuberville to do this? It's bad politics. It is bad for national security. And frankly, why do the Senate majority Democrats allow him to do this? Why would one senator be able to put the national security at risk? I do think that it's important to call out the way in which the clown show of our politics plays in a very dangerous world. This is one of those issues where there are real consequences. It hurts real people. It damages the readiness, but also it makes us look like we are feckless. And that is dangerous. I don't know why Mitch McConnell is allowing him to get away with it, except that he's afraid to take him on. And I don't understand, quite frankly, why the Senate Democrats don't do something about this as well. But I think that President Biden's criticism is timely and completely justified, and I think you got to keep it up.
Well, I mean, Charlie, just to follow up on the politics, I mean, Mitch McConnell can acknowledge that the extreme views of election denialism likely cost Republicans the majority. He hasn't seen anything yet. I mean, the extreme views on military readiness are a massive loser. It is one of the most sort of enduring institutions in our very sort of polarized civic life.
Well, exactly, and this goes to one of the alleged strengths of the Republican Party, and this is an important constituency, and it's hard to imagine any place in America where this particular position is politically effective. And again, not just on a political level. I mean, we were talking about in terms of elections. But in terms of the damage that it is inflicting, on the U.S. military, the fact that for the first time in its history, the Marine Corps does not have a commandant. I mean, that is a real problem. Turn it around. I mean, imagine if you had liberal Democrats who were doing this to the military. Imagine if you had the Progressive Caucus that was making it impossible for the leadership of the military to rotate or to do its job. Can you imagine what the reaction of Republicans would be? Can you imagine how this would play on conservative media? Because I certainly can't.
Sure. I mean, Benghazi hearings, 2.0 on steroids. Allison, I want to play for you something that Politico reported. This is retired 2-star Marine Corps General Arnold Funaro on the holds and their real consequences.
A good example of what's happening in the Marine Corps is you have Eric Smith, who's the assistant commandant. That's still his billet because he didn't get confirmed. He's doing the equivalent of 2 full-time 4-star jobs right now. It'd be like asking the Auburn quarterback to play offensive tackle and quarterback at the same time. That's what's happening. So I don't think people really understand how detrimental this really is on a day-to-day basis.
Important, perhaps, for an audience of one to explain it in football terms, but I think people need to hear this, how truly damaging and dangerous this is for the military and, by extension, all of us.
Definitely. And I think, the under-discussed thing, point here, too, is that the senator is also exploiting the fact that these officers can't just take to Twitter. They can't become activists to sort of speak up for themselves. Like, it's their job in the military to fall in line to take orders, And so I'm glad that folks like that Marine Corps general and the responsibility I feel as an advocate is to speak up on their behalf because they can't get vocal and outraged. And it's a real shame, but hopefully the volume continues to increase on this particular issue. And advocates and especially, politicians that aren't showing a lot of backbone right now can stand up to their colleagues, and hopefully we can get this resolved sooner rather than later.
Allison, you are welcome here any day, every day, to be their voice and to be their advocate. Charlie Sykes, thank you for sticking around for so much of this hour. Ahead for us.